What's good YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Lars in Conditioning. Should you be making small or big changes to your training split? If you're feeling stuck right now in your training program and you want to make some changes but you're not sure if you should make big or small changes, first of all, are you actually stuck? Is it simply just because progress isn't happening every single week anymore? Or have you actually hit a plateau where you have been stuck at the same weight and rep for a month, 2, maybe even 3 months? If that's the case, sure, then you need to make some changes. I would say make small changes rather than big changes. Because if you make a big change, you do not know what was actually causing the change in the first place. So if you make a huge change to your training program, you don't actually know what particular part of that change was actually working. Versus if you make small changes and you see nothing happens, you make another small change, nothing happens, you make another small change, suddenly something happened. Then you know what was the problem. And if you don't know what the problem is, which will be the issue if you make a big change, then you don't know for future reference what you should potentially change in the first place the next time around it happens, because it will happen again. When you train long enough, sooner or later there will be changes that you have to make in order to actually spark new change. So you cannot just make drastic changes because you will not know what will actually be the cause that will make these new changes actually happen. When we make smaller changes, it's a lot easier to actually track what is going on and what's not going on. It's the same principle for people who want to lose weight. If you are making small changes, you can see what's working and what's not working. You can actually track it. Versus if you make way too big of a change, then you actually don't know what will cause the change. If you go from training 3 days a week to 5 days a week because you can do it, and then new change happens, you don't know what part of this change that actually caused it. Is it the increased frequency? Is it the increased volume? Is it higher intensity? Is it more total workload? What is it? You don't actually know because you've made such a huge change that you don't know what is actually behind it all. Or did you potentially even add new variations that maybe wasn't even needed in the first place, or maybe it was? You don't know because you made it too big of a change. As an example, with something being stuck, if let's say bench press, because a lot of young people obviously wants to bench press a lot. So if your bench is stuck but you haven't actually studied what part of the bench press that is the problem for you. Have you filmed it? Have you tried and see what's happening? Is it a certain part of the lift that is significantly harder for you? Potentially it's the bottom position right off the chest that is extremely difficult for you and you expend a lot of energy like that. Or maybe it's the top part, maybe it's the middle part. Maybe you start wailing your legs around. With this knowledge, you will actually be armed to know what changes you should make to your bench press and what exercises you should potentially add. So if you are stuck off the barbell off your chest, then you need to do pause reps, meaning you need to pause the bar at your chest so you actually spend time in the position where you're actually weaker. And what this will do is enable you to strengthen that particular area as you will spend more time with that. Obviously you're going to have to reduce the load because you're going to have a certain amount of repetitions that we need you to hit. So, and for some people, they will be extremely strong right off the chest and they get to the middle point and then they start shaking up. That's more of a lockout strength problem. So if that's more you, then you need to work more towards your lockout strength. Maybe you're skipping a lot of your tricep work, or you're not really training your lockout strength. What is lockout strength in the first place? Lockout strength refers to the ability to extend your arm. So if you get to a part where you get here and you start shaking, can't get to this part, that's the part where you need to train because that's where you're weak. So you need to train that particular area and that will help in your bench press. So these are some of the smaller changes that will be really good. So in order to know what smaller changes you need to make, you need to look at particular lifts. What part of the lift is the problem for you? When you know what part of the lift is the problem, you can also make the correct change, the correct small changes, by the way. And then you can attack the problem, and then you can get new growth. Now, what if the problem lies in that you have lost the enjoyment with training? If you have lost the enjoyment with training, this is actually one of the few times where I would recommend making a bigger change. Because when you make a bigger change, clearly there's something in the current training that you're not really in love with or that you enjoy. So in order to do something that you actually really enjoy, you should make a bigger change. Because if you can make a bigger change that you actually like doing, then you will also be able to train harder and then train more frequently, and you will actually not just go through the motions. Everybody can train really hard for 1 or 2 sets, but how many people can do it for 10, 15, maybe even 20 sets per session? If you struggle with going hard on all your sets, it may be an indication that you don't enjoy the particular exercises, so it can be a very good idea to actually make a big change and then change all the components right now that you don't like. Sure, it may not be optimal, but I would say even if it's not optimal, if it makes you go and it makes you enjoy the training, that will be optimal any day of the week. Because something could be optimal, so to speak, but if you're not actually putting in the effort, then that optimal training is no longer optimal. Then you could take something that is suboptimal and then push hard because you love it, then that will actually be a lot better. You could even argue it would technically be optimal for you. Thank you for watching Lars Conditioning.